Hey everyone, it's Argonath here from The Right Way. Welcome to another video. In this one we're going to be looking at the utter hypocrisy of the so-called health experts in New Zealand and the government as well, because we've just had a big, well, I wouldn't say huge, but a reasonably big protest rally in Auckland. So currently Auckland, for those of you not in New Zealand, Auckland is currently in level 3. So basically you're supposed to stay at home. You can go outside for exercise as long as it's not too far from your house. You need to wear a mask unless you can socially distance, and you're not kind of doing strenuous exercise or anything. You don't really need to wear a mask outside for that, but obviously having a big rally in Auckland is going to cause a bit of a problem. So the COVID-19 Delta outbreak, Brian Tamaki's Auckland lockdown protest rally, highly irresponsible, experts here. So Brian Tamaki is quite well known in New Zealand. He's a leader of a church called the Destiny Church. He's kind of not very well liked because he's one of those evangelical church type setups where everyone kind of gives money to the church, and obviously he's the pastor of the church, so he kind of collects all that money and spends it how he sees fit. I mean, I don't really like the guy, but you know, who am I to tell these people not to give their money to him if they want to? That's up to them. But anyway, so he's not very well liked, so that's why all of our news agencies and health experts are jumping down his throat. So let's have a read of this and then we'll see what the utter hypocrisy is. So Brian Tamaki and his followers were highly irresponsible to organise this morning's anti-lockdown process. So this was written on the 2nd of October, which is the day I'm recording this. So it was in the morning of this particular day. Lockdown process in the Auckland domain, epidemiologist Professor Michael Baker says. And Te Punaha Matatini COVID-19 modeler Professor Michael Plank said the actions of the protesters to go out and break the level 3 rules designed to protect Aucklanders was disappointing. It does create the risk that the virus is able to spread. It undermines our collective response, Plank said. As many as 2,000 protesters, the majority of whom were not wearing masks, gathered on the field and steps in front of the Auckland War Memorial Museum. So remember that number, 2,000 protesters, majority were not wearing masks. So in the middle of a Delta outbreak in New Zealand, which is more infectious, and they should be in level 3, which means they're not allowed to go out of the house unless they're in their own bubble. The crowd included a range of people from gang members to grannies. There were families, including with young babies, on picnic chairs. Others included people in wheelchairs, some walking dogs, while a series of motorbikes were parked on the side of, along with 2 or 3 tractors. Police have said they are disappointed by what they occurred. Disappointed is the word for going, we're bloody annoyed about this. Professor Baker said that when Auckland was making big sacrifices to maintain the COVID-19 outbreak, the protest action was not helping. He said there was a chance an infectious person attended the event, but the level of risk was hard to estimate, and it could be a case of good or bad luck for the virus to spread. The positive side was the event was not indoors, reducing the potential for super spreading, but a concern was that people travelling in groups and holding gatherings before and after the event. It also created precedents for more rule breaking. So just remember that, precedent for more rule breaking, because this has happened before, but no one kind of mentions it. Alright, so Tamaki took to the stage about 11:20 a.m. and thanked those who had gathered. He also thanked the police for working with him to make it a peaceful but powerful day. Tamaki's message to the government was, we've had a gutsful. The protesters showed up today. We're bringing an important message that we are taking back our country. So Auckland has been in lockdown for the last 5 weeks or so, from level 4 for most of that time down to level 3 now, which means they're still currently locked down in their houses. So that might not seem long to a lot of you overseas. That might be in Australia or other parts. But, you know, as you know, that's a long amount of time for people to be locked down, and it's getting to people. Today we are facing a government we thought we could trust. Instead, they are stripping away the freedoms and rights of everyday Kiwis. He said he believed the government didn't know what to do next and run out of ideas. He said he was not a scientist or politician. Some of those gathered probably were experts by now because everything they'd read on social media, he said. Auckland was coming up to spending 50 days in home detention. So basically it's what it is, right? They're in a prison inside their house, which in our legal system, it's called home detention. That's pretty much it, basically. I love this guy's shirt with the finger on the back. That is awesome. But look at the wide range of people, right, that are out here protesting, and they're quite within their rights to do that. That's what they give to prisoners. We've all gone to prison. Society has been restructured in fear, and I really feel this in New Zealand. There's been a massive amount of fear porn going on with all the media, left-wing media. Basically, they've been bought out by the government because there's a fund that they can use to help fund all the articles and things. And of course, if you want to get access to that fund provided by the government, well, you can't say anything bad about the government, can you? You need to toe the party line. You need to toe the narrative. And so our population has just been held in fear. All we've heard so far is that the Delta strain is deadly. It's deadly. It's going to kill hundreds and thousands of people. We've had 1,000 cases of Delta, mostly all unvaccinated. We've only had one death. Right? So this deadly virus has only killed one person, and they had underlying conditions, even though it's so deadly, and most of the people were unvaccinated as well. So just think about that. While largely peaceful, the gathering of around 1,000 people, said 2,000 before, but now it says 1,000, whatever, was in breach of Alert Level 3 restrictions, which limited gatherings to weddings, funerals, tangi hanga, that's a funeral in Māori, with no more than 10 people. At this stage, there have been no arrests or infringement issued. However, the lack of participants staying 2 metres apart is a concern. Police are now considering prosecution options. So they're considering prosecution here. And I'm going to come back to something that happened earlier on in 2020. Police respected the law and right to protest, but they said in a statement that in the current environment, such a gathering poses a serious risk to those present, police, and the wider community. While many attendees did wear masks and attempt to distance, many more of those gathered today failed to wear a face covering or maintain social distancing, an undertaking given to police by the organisers earlier this week. Police took a prevention-first approach to the gathering by engaging the organisers ahead of today and then deploying staff to monitor the situation and take action if necessary. Earlier this week, Auckland Mayor Phil Goff slammed Tamaki as an idiot after revelations he was planning a protest. As I said, Tamaki is not well liked. And Mayor Phil Goff is also an idiot, in my opinion, as well. So it goes on a little bit more about what's happened and so on. So that's the lowdown of what's happened today. Let's go back to 2020, and I've got an article here from Radio New Zealand, and this was written on the 28th of September. Oh, it's almost day for day. It's almost day for day, right? We're 2nd of October. This is 28th of September 2020. Let's just make that a little bit bigger for you. Police considered charging Black Lives Matter March organisers. BLM, the BLM March in New Zealand. Have you had a BLM March in your country or town, wherever you happen to be? Police considered charging the organisers of the New Zealand marches held in June in support of the US Black Lives Matter movement because COVID-19 restrictions weren't followed. Oh dear. In briefing to the police minister, officials said guidelines were not followed despite assurances from organisers and stated that possible moves to charge the organisers should not be made public. Oh my God! They had assurances from the BLM organisers as well, but that wasn't followed. Oh dear, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? In the end, the police decided an educational approach rather than a punitive one was appropriate. The protest marches were held a week after the death of US man George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police officers. So they didn't charge these people back in 2020, but now they're considering charging Brian Tamaki and those people because they're not well liked and they're not part of the BLM movement. Utter hypocrisy. It just talks about what happened to George Floyd. We don't need to go into that. Everyone knows kind of that what's happened. In Auckland, more than 10,000 people turned up for the BLM march, whereas 2,000 people turned up for this march that happened today. At that time, New Zealand was at COVID-19 Alert Level 2, which meant gatherings of no more than 100 people and strict social distancing had to be adhered to in public places. As the police said in their briefing, Police Minister Stuart Nash, that did not happen during the rallies. So they couldn't hold the BLM back then without breaking the strict COVID rules either. Did you hear, is there any mention of any of these so-called epidemiologists or public health experts coming out and saying that they shouldn't have gone through with this, and it jeopardized New Zealand and our COVID-free status, which we had for a year and so on? Nope, didn't hear any of these people come out then, because they are utter hypocrites. All right, so if you let these people off, the BLM marches people off, you need to let Brian Tamaki off as well, because basically they did exactly the same thing, and the hypocrisy is just absolutely stunning from the government and the police and our so-called experts. Anyway, that's it for this episode. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, feel free to give me a thumbs down. If you have any comments to make about the hypocrisy of everyone involved, I would love to hear your thoughts as well. If you like my content, please give me a subscription. If you like, it just helps my videos getting out there through the YouTube algorithm, and hopefully other people can find my content as well. Anyway, that's all for now, and hopefully I will catch you in the next video.